Boom! Welcome into Sports Bet Betting Insight today, Wednesday, September 28th. Paulie and Teddy, big game breakdown. Dolphins and the Bengals. Then we'll go to college. Toledo and BYU and the monster matchup Friday on ESPN. Stanford and Washington. Deep dive, advanced parlay strategy. Big show coming up. A big injury in the NFL. We start there. Teddy, J.J. Watt re-injures his back. He's headed to IR. Could be done for the season.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're talking about a guy that has 3 NFL Defensive Player of the Year awards already in his pocket. I mean, I think J.J. Watt, J.J. Watt moves the needle on a point spread more than any other defensive player in the NFL. Let's put it that way. There's not another defensive guy that's going to move the spread a point. Watt has the potential to move it as much as a point and a half with some of the guys that I've talked to. So, he re-injured his back during the loss to the Patriots, and now we're talking a guy that missed all of preseason after undergoing surgery on that back in late July. Don't know if J.J. Watt's going to be back this year, which leaves the worst division in the NFL without their best team, or without the best player on their best team.
You wonder why they didn't call his name against New England. He was a no-show in that game, and now I think they have the pieces on offense, but they didn't show it at New England. I still think they win the division.
Well, I mean, the competition is not exactly fierce. It's not like the Jaguars have come out of the gate and said, oh, this is Jacksonville's year. Or Tennessee's come out of the gate and, oh, this is Tennessee's year. Indy still with cluster injuries in the secondary, with an offensive line that's banged up beyond belief. In many ways lucky to get the first win against San Diego last week. So, I mean, you can't downgrade Houston too much in that division. What you can do is bet against teams from that division every time they step out. That's been a money-winning strategy so far this season. It was a money-winning strategy last year as well.
How about the buffoon at Yankee Stadium last night? On the Jumbotron, he proposes to his girlfriend, and then he drops the ring. They can't find it. The search goes on for 5 friggin' minutes.
The Jumbotron doesn't go off. How could you? But you call him a buffoon. You got to feel sorry for the guy. Have you ever been on a Jumbotron?
No, no.
Yeah,
exactly. I don't like these guys who do that. Hey, I don't like these guys who do that shit at sporting events.
Yeah, I mean, no argument here. When I proposed to Kara, it sure as hell wasn't at Yankee Stadium. That being said, I feel bad for the guy more than call him a buffoon. You're a little jumpy. It's kind of a nervous night to begin with. You're on the Jumbotron. And worst case scenario, what, it fall in her pants or something?
Yeah, it was like stuck in, she found it in her pants by her shoe. After 5 minutes. Hey, she said yes. At least it wasn't a total disaster. But I give it 2 years. So
take the under. Sharp money's always on the under.
Yeah, right. All right, bad for the books. We continue with Major League Baseball. Ooh, look at the move on the Tigers yesterday, Teddy. Bet up from 215 all the way to 280, and Verlander threw a gem as the Indians were in celebration mode.
Yeah, and you're going to see this a lot over the last week of the season. We've seen it a handful of times already because the books, they kind of get caught in that trap of a team giving basically everybody off. All the key players got the night off after clinching the division. Nothing but Tigers money. He's talking about minus 215 at the open, minus 280, even higher in some places at the close. Then finally, the Tigers got a win against the Indians. Verlander, what did he do last night? 7.2 innings, no runs, 4 hits, 12 strikeouts, and all of a sudden Detroit now only a game and a half behind the suddenly slumping Baltimore Orioles.
Man, never good for the books when the favorites go crazy. That's what also happened last night in MLB.
Oh, yeah, huge night for the chalk. I mean, when you talk about big dogs that cashed, there was one. The Yankees beat the Red Sox. That was it. We'll talk about that game in just a moment.
Yep, Cubs win again, 101 wins, Teddy.
Yeah, no, I'm telling you. We say it every day on SportsBit. The books absolutely hate the Chicago Cubs. You can't price an MLB winner and turn it into a loser. You can't do it. You can do it in football, make the point spread high enough. You can do it in basketball, you make the point spread high enough. You can never do it in baseball. The only time the books make any money is when the Cubs lose, and that hasn't happened a whole lot this season. It'll get worse if Chicago goes on to win the World Series.
Well, also, it'll be painful if the Cubs can't make it to the World Series, which, hey, I live and breathe. 1908 for a reason, okay? I watched every game with my dad, Harry Carey, day baseball. Finally, I had enough. I said, go hurt somebody else. I jumped ship. But if they, with what happened yesterday with the Nationals, Strasburg likely out for the NLDS and Ramos out for the year. If they don't make it to the World Series with that stacked team, it's a damn shame. But I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, because you and I have both discounted Washington throughout the course of the season. We say this team has repeatedly been a good regular season team. They have not stepped up at any point in any postseason. They've been a bunch of chokers. And when a team falls into that, we're going to choke every year in October mode, until it changes, that's the only way I can look at them. Then we don't like Dusty Baker very much. As a regular season manager, fine. Postseason manager, his track record is lousy, and there's no other way around it. So you lose Ramos, Ramos for the year, big loss. Strasburg missing the NLDS, big loss. Obviously, Washington is vulnerable. But I didn't look at the Nats as being the team that's going to challenge the Cubs anyway. The LA Dodgers are the team that's going to challenge the Cubs. That's the team they got to worry about.
100% agree. Be afraid of Kershaw, Hill, and Maeda and that Dodger offense. Here's the one bad bet. A 40-cent move on the Red Sox. They were trying to clinch the division. Price got lit up.
Oh, yeah, he sure did. Gary Sanchez, again, Didi Gregorius, Tyler Austin, all went yard against David Price. Big night for the Bronx Bombers. As we say it every day, Paul, they continue to fight. I give the Yankees, this Yankees team has shown me a lot in terms of character that I think will bode well for them next year.
Full marks, yep. And how about the Sanchez, the Sanchino? 20 homers in 51 games. Astonishing. Up next, big game breakdown. We'll start in the NFL with the Dolphins and the Bengals. And we'll get to that huge matchup Friday night, Stanford and Washington on SportsBit. Betting insight today on SBRpicks.com.
In the $50,000 NFL and college football contest here at Sportsbook Review, the prick ended up going 2-3, but hit his best bet on Iowa State. Looks like he's back to eating chalk again for Week 4. Let's run through his picks now for Week 4. Florida -10 against Vanderbilt. Ohio -2.5 against Miami, Ohio. UCLA -13.5 against Arizona. UNLV -10 against Fresno State, with his best bet being Oklahoma -3.5 against TCU.
All right, back on SportsBit. Time for a big game breakdown. As always, live out at sportsbookreview.com. NFL Thursday night. Dolphins hit the road to take on the Bengals. Cincinnati 744.5 the total. Big test for Ryan Tannehill. I think he's an average quarterback at best. Struggled at Seattle. Still could have won the game. They dropped the bomb. Was terrific in the second half at New England. We thought that was a buy signal, but then they struggled. They should have lost at home to Cleveland, Teddy.
They should have lost at home to Cleveland, and a lot of it was Tannehill's interceptions. I mean, the last 2 games, he's thrown for more than 700 yards and 5 touchdowns, but he's thrown 4 picks during that span, and were it not for a missed field goal by the Browns, waiver wire kicker at the end of regulation following a Tannehill turnover, Miami would have lost that game, but they didn't. They won that game. And Tannehill, he's kind of a good fit for the Adam Gase system. He's still going to be a work in progress as his system develops. No question about it. But, you look at the injuries to Miami, the receiving core is banged up. Jarvis Landry missed a practice earlier in the week. He's very much a question mark. And they're going up against a pretty good defense here. We saw the Patriots shut him down for a half. We saw the Seahawks shut him down for most of the game. 1 touchdown drive in the fourth quarter there. Now a third quality defense that Ryan Tannehill and company are going to have to try to move the football again.
Bengals took chances last week, and it didn't work out. They gave up some big plays. They missed their opportunities to force some turnovers, and Trevor Siemian lit them up for 4 touchdown passes.
Yeah, he sure did. Here's a quote from Cincinnati defense coordinator Paul Guenther following last week's game. Quote, "That's the difference between really winning and losing the game. We dropped 2 right in our hands. That right there is a field position swing, and anytime you get a turnover, I think the one score we got a turnover on the punt, they got it at midfield. Missed opportunities on turnovers. When you're playing a good team that's defending world champs, you got to make all of those. You can't make half." And there were a ton of missed opportunities for Cincinnati last week. The defense, as you mentioned, dropped a couple of passes that were in their hand that could have changed the game. And the offense continues to struggle in the red zone without their Pro Bowl tight end.
Yep, Eifert's out on game time decision, but most likely misses this game on Thursday. And only 3 touchdowns in 10 possessions in the red zone. That is 29th in the NFL, and only 2 touchdown passes in 115 attempts for Andy Dalton.
Yeah, and again, Dalton last year finished number 2 in the NFL in a quarterback rating. And when we were doing our previews over the summer, we said, is Andy Dalton really the second best quarterback in the NFL? He isn't. And so far this season, he hasn't been. Again, 2 touchdown passes in 115 attempts. You talked about Eifert, he's listed as a game time decision. I think he is going to miss this game. Remember, 13 of his 52 catches went for touchdowns last year. They really miss him in the red zone right now.
Always tough for the road team on a short week with these Thursday night games. Do you have a lean?
You know, it is always tough for the road team on the Thursday night games, especially when we're talking about a very inexperienced coaching staff. And there's no coaching staff in the NFL that's got less experience than that of the Miami Dolphins. If I'm playing, I'm laying, but I don't know that I trust Cincy to be scoring touchdowns, given their red zone failures. When I don't trust a team to score touchdowns, can't lay a touchdown with them. Probably going to be a pass for me, Paul.
All right, to college now. Thursday night, ESPN2, liveoddsportsbookreview.com. Toledo and BYU. BYU at home, 3.5, 52 the total. Big-time showcase game for Toledo. Win here and likely 11-0 in the final MAC game at Western Michigan and a chance for a historic season. Plus, they had the week off, Teddy.
Yeah, I mean, they've been practicing for this one for 2 weeks. And when we talk about the Toledo program, all right, we don't think of Toledo as being one of the elite in the non-Power 5 conferences. But when you look at what this program's done over the last 4 or 5 years, I mean, it's been up and up and up. The fifth-year seniors have played in so many of these kind of games. At Arizona, at Florida, at Missouri, at Arkansas. They've covered the spread in 3 of those 4. They pulled the outright upset at Arkansas last year, and they've got a quarterback and a defense. Logan Woodside is the QB. I mean, this kid plays with poise. 939 passing yards, 62% completions, 11 touchdowns, only 1 INT. He's the real deal in Toledo. I'm telling you, I've watched this team play when they step up against the big boys, and they don't take prisoners. You know what I mean? They're not intimidated by what some squads would consider to be very hostile environment.
Oh, you're right. And they handled it against Arkansas. Can they handle Jamal Williams now? Power back, averaging 5.3 yards a carry and doing it. Remember, BYU's played the toughest schedule in the country. Arizona, Utah, UCLA, and West Virginia already.
Yeah, that's just it. This is a step down in class for a BYU team that has, absolutely been up against it. In the last 3 weeks, I mean, barn burner games. Week 1 was a barn burner against Arizona. It's almost like last year where they had all of these tight games, and then all of a sudden now they exhale. That is a concern. But I have another concern on the Toledo side, and this has to do with size. BYU, they got all the kids coming back from their missions. Their offensive linemen, 23, 24, 25 years old, 300-pounders across the board. Same story on the defensive line. Toledo can't match that size, like all the best MAC schools. And right now we talk about the top of the MAC. You're talking about Toledo, Western Michigan, maybe Central Michigan as the top 3 schools in the MAC this year. What do they get? They get the kids that aren't big enough to play in the Big Ten. The Big Ten schools don't recruit them. They still have the speed. They just don't have the size. And that is a problem in this particular matchup because BYU is so big and so physical in the trenches that to me is a negative for Toledo, even though, man, I like the character of that Rockets team a lot. And I worry about the Cougars' energy.
Well, wait a second now. Yeah. Could BYU wear down because of that schedule? And they had the game in D.C. against West Virginia while Toledo was off.
They sure could. I mean, spot-wise, it's all Toledo. You know what I mean? I mean, the front half of the season for BYU has been brutal. They played 4 straight games down to the wire. They traveled all the way east last week. Now they're coming home on a short week. And the Rockets just been resting, prepping for this. So spot-wise, I can only look at Toledo. And when you look at the issues with the offense, I mean, Taysom Hill, all right, it's Ty Detmer, the new offensive coordinator for BYU this year. They've been trying to make Hill into a pocket passer. He's not a pocket passer. He's a better dual threat. He's a better runner, in fact. So far, only 5.7 yards per pass attempt, 7 interceptions, only 4 TDs. Taysom Hill not adjusting well to Ty Detmer's offense, and that's a problem here against a Toledo defense that, again, they're quick, they're speedy. It's a much better defense than most in the MAC.
Man, we saved the best for last. Live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Friday night on ESPN, Stanford and Washington. Huskies 3, 44 the total. Ryan Burns made the plays late in the final drive. They were down 13-9 with 30 seconds left. He was only 13 of 27 for 135 yards until the touchdown pass to win the game. And then you know what happened on the final play. I think he's good. I blame a lot of this on David Shaw, who goes way, way conservative.
He sure does. And I mean, we wonder how well Ryan Burns knows the offense. We read a quote last week here on SportsBit from David Shaw, talking about how Burns, well, it's going to be some growing pains with this guy. He's not ready for us to give him everything yet. That being said, we know what Shaw does in this. He did it with his senior quarterback in Hogan last year. He plays these games very conservatively, and it's worked out. Stanford's won a whole lot of late coin flips by wearing teams down, but this might be the biggest challenge that Burns faces all season. That Washington secondary is loaded. Buda Baker, Sidney Jones, both guys are going to be, I don't know if they'll be first-day draft choices, but they'll be, first or second-day draft choices in the NFL. And you throw in a really strong pass rush up front. And Burns has got playmakers in the secondary to worry about and playmakers up front. I don't like that for a young QB.
Huskies have the edge at quarterback with Browning, also a great 1-2 combo at running back with Gaskin and Coleman. They've had a big season so far, and they were terrific, especially Coleman in the win in overtime against Arizona. Can they finally do it here, Ted? The history's not on their side. They're 1-7 straight up in the last 8 against Stanford.
Stanford's been the better program.
Yeah,
for more than a decade. But this is one of those games that you talk to people in Vegas and then you talk to people out in the hinterlands. And out in the hinterlands, they go, wow, Stanford. Isn't Stanford the best team? They're not this year. Vegas knows it. That's why Washington is favored in this ballgame. This Huskies program hasn't been able to turn the corner. The Steve Sarkisian era couldn't do it. Well, guess what? The Peterson era, they're about to do it. Washington is the better of these two teams. I expect them to show it on Friday night. We'll get back to this game when it comes to play of the daytime.
Yes, up next, deep dive, advanced parlay strategy. We'll get to that. And we'll tell you about Beat the Prick as well. I can win $50,000 on SportsBit. Betting insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Hey, SportsBit viewers, tune into the MLB Odds Couple show today for Wednesday, September 28th. I gave about 26 picks.
You better bring a piece of paper
in
and
the
a pencil
show.
and write it down. I'm telling you.
Not kidding. Tune into the show, about 26 picks. I literally had a pick on 14 of the games, more than one. And you know what? I'm not kidding. I'm liking them all. I'm liking them all.
Guys, hey, I'm 19-7 on my power picks in MLB. Don't miss it. I got 2 of them today.
All right, back on SportsBit, betting insight today. Paulie and Teddy. Follow us on Twitter at Paulie Howard at Teddy_covers. $50,000 football contest up at sportsbookreview.com. Beat the Prick. Week 4 coming up. He went 2-3 last week. His best bet won easy with Iowa State. Boy, this guy loves the chalk. My God. All right, Teddy. He likes Florida laying 10 against Vandy. Pick number 1.
Hate it.
Ohio 2.5.
Against Miami-O? Miami-O's outgained every opponent so far this year. Don't like that one either.
UCLA laying almost 2 touchdowns against Arizona.
Yeah, I kind of like that one. No argument.
All right, UNLV then with the quarterback injury, about 9 at home against Fresno.
Ooh, I think Fresno might have quit on DeRuyter after the way they blew that game last week. Coach on the hot seat. No problem with that one. 2-2 so far. Okay.
Best bet, Oklahoma on the road against TCU.
Oh, he went 2-3 last week. He's going to go 2-3 again this week. That's what I'll call 2-3.
Your chance to win $50,000. Get up there and compete against the Prick at sportsbookreview.com. Deep dive. Do pros bet parlays? How and why? Never randomly throwing teams together looking for a big score, not even a 3-teamer. But that doesn't mean that parlays aren't a piece of wise guys' portfolio over the course of a weekend, Teddy.
Yeah, and look, let's make this very clear. The way casual bettors bet parlays will not win. If you blindly bet too many of them, you won't have a prayer. Just look at the picture. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about. You can't just throw teams together. And remember, when you're dealing with parlays, you're only dealing with one sportsbook. So you lose the ability to line shop. You lose the ability to bet at different times of the week. Oh, I want this game now. I'm going to get this one on Saturday night before, you don't have those options. So when you're talking about beating parlays, it's not about trying to get a big score. It is, well, there are situations where it is, but there are definitely a piece of a wise guy's portfolio over the course of a weekend. There will be parlays, and it's not unusual to see that whatsoever. But the goal of this segment, like we did 2 weeks ago, we talked about teaser strategies. What are the positive expectation strategies for betting parlays? And the number one negative expectation strategy is randomly throwing teams together trying to get a big score. Not going to work. You will lose your money that way.
Okay, professionals love to bet, when they do bet parlays, they look for correlated parlays.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the simplest one. We always look for correlations. And the way to describe it, I guess, best was side and total in the same game. You know, if Team A is going to win and cover, this game's going to go over. Or if Team B is going to hang in the game as an underdog, the offense isn't good enough to trade points. It can only be an under. This is a concept that works in baseball. It's a concept that works in basketball. It's a concept that works in football. The side and total correlation, you put them together, and books will always take a two-team parlay. They're not going to tell you, no, you can't parlay side and total in the same game, with a couple of minor exceptions to that rule. But the bottom line is, that's the majority, not the majority, but certainly a piece of the parlay equation for the wise guys is simply betting side and total. Favorite correlates sometimes with over, other times with under. But when you can figure out the best correlation between the two, that's your optimal strategy.
Strong beware. Beware of false correlations.
Yeah, and that's the truth of it. It's a strong beware, because people are always thinking, oh, yeah, there's a correlation here, there's a correlation. Not necessarily. And you'll have to lose a good handful of side total parlays where you're like, oh, they can't win if the game goes over. Or they can't cover. Well, yes, they can. But that when I'm talking about side and total in the same game, that's just one type of correlation. There are other correlations. We're talking about Week 17 in the NFL. You know, Team A wins, Team B is going to rest their starters. That type of things that are real correlations. But definitely beware of false correlations where item A or result A has absolutely nothing to do with result B.
Number 2, the under the radar for parlay card bettors. Book shade the cards to beat the public bettors.
Yeah, we got a bunch of parlay card stories. I got to tell a correlation. Give me one more correlation story for just a moment. All right, here's a Super Bowl parlay card, because your parlay cards you'll find, again, you see them in Vegas, but they're available online as well. But here's a Super Bowl parlay card. It's loaded with 50 plus options. Okay, Team A final score odd or even included among those options. Team B score odd or even. Final score odd or even. Well, I'm going to give you guys 5 seconds to figure out the way to play that parlay card. Meanwhile, play the Wheel of Fortune music, or the Jeopardy music. It's easy, okay? You play it odd, even, or even. If you have 2 odd scores, there'll be an even. If you have 2 even scores, it'll be an even. There's correlation there. And that's a sportsbook mistake. They happen. They don't happen a lot, but they do happen. Your job, if you want to beat parlays, is to find them and exploit them. And remember, you don't just have to put those in together, odd, even, or even. You can put them into bigger parlays and look for bigger scores.
Yeah. When you're betting these parlay cards too, and we know a professional who had a huge score at the Aladdin, it's not the Aladdin anymore, just picking off stale numbers.
Well, that's the beauty of it. I mean, the books are always going to shade the card to beat the public bettors. You'll see parlay cards in every sports book in Las Vegas prominently displayed all year long because they beat the crap out of the public. The whole percentage on those things is enormous. So games lined at 3 become 3.5 in football. The 7s become 7.5 because the public is going to bet favorites. The lines move. The cards get printed early in the week. And again, you talked about a guy that we both know who got his start. He's a well-known handicapper. He's beaten 10 teamers and 15 teamers doing nothing but taking advantage of bad numbers and playing mostly dogs. And of course, the prevailing thought process, nobody can beat 10 teamers. No wise guy would even look at them. Oops. And that can be a big oops in those situations. And when we're talking about those type of parlays, look, you get a 10-teamer, you hit 1 strong weekend in a season, you're even. You have 2 strong weekends over the course of a season, you made a bunch of money. You had 3 strong weekends, you're going to make a lot of money. But you need the bankroll and the mentality to withstand the potential for many, not just 1 or 2, but for many losing weekends in a row. Some guys are built that way, some guys aren't. If you don't have the bankroll and the mentality to withstand a steady stream of losses waiting for the big score, that's probably not the way you want to look.
This is also very important. Be smart and stay under the radar. You hit something, don't pound your chest, don't go crazy. Another thing, this is with parlay cards and also future tickets. Bet small, don't sound the alarms. No one notices a $20 parlay card, 30, 40. You want to try to put in 100, 150. That's when you get the attention of the supervisor. And just go up to the ticket, the teller rather, the writer, and say, here it is. Run the damn thing 3, 4, 5 times.
That's both excellent points. And you talk about not about pounding your chest. Look, if you're going to make either a steady chunk of change or a living betting on sports, it's not about figuring out how many books you can get kicked out of. It's about staying under the radar and being live to pick off bad numbers wherever you find them. So you say be smart enough to stay under the radar. Look, it's the Twitter age. Everyone's about self-promotion. Everyone's about, oh, look what I did, pounding their chest. That's not the way the pros do it. I'll just put it that way. And I love the concept that you brought up. Lots of smaller bets when exploiting a single bad number or 2 or 3. You wheel them into a bunch of parlays. Dozens and dozens of $20 parlays or $40 parlays will not raise an eyebrow. You'd be amazed at how much you can get down taking advantage of some of the bad numbers.
I did it a couple years ago in college basketball. I had Villanova at 50-1 to win it all. They made the Final Four. You go up there and say, give me $40 on Villanova to win it all. Give it to me again. Hit it again. Hit it again. Hit it again. And then the supervisor says, why do you want so many tickets? So, for the boys back in Philly. And even though you've never been there in your life, that's problem solved, taken care of. Great job with that, Teddy. And I know people loved the teaser segment a couple weeks ago. All right, money time, play of the day. Friday night ESPN back to Stanford and Washington, the monster matchup. What are we doing?
Let's take the home team, the Washington Huskies, game number 110, -3 against Stanford. A, I think this line's going to go up. B, Washington's the better team. You're going to see it on Friday night. The nation doesn't know yet. They're about to find out what Vegas knows already. Game number 110, Washington, -3 on Friday night. That's our play of the day.
All right, very good. Fast-paced show. You know what Thursday and Friday means. College football, big game breakdown. And Friday is the NFL, 14-6-1 in football so far on the season. Tell your friends. Let's get this sucker going with the views up, 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 and up. We'll see you Thursday on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.